Hey kids, so you want to play pit? Well, that's cool. Today we're going to be learning how to play the exercise that is commonly referred to as green. Green is just any old scale that you can map onto this pattern that makes it really easy to play with mallets really quickly. So the basic pattern of green is you start on a key, right? You start on a tonic, which in this case we're going to go with C, it's the easiest scale. And you go up to the fifth, and then back down, and then back up, and then back down. You're going to do that twice, so it's going to sound like this. Then after that, you're going to go from the C all the way up to the next D. So a long run of 9 notes. And then after that, you're going to start here and do a similar pattern to the beginning, but going down and up. So. And then after that, you're going to start at the D and go all the way back down to the C. And then you're going to start from the C up to the D and back down to the C to finish out the exercise. So all together, that's going to sound like this. Take it and map it to any other key you want. So we usually move it throughout the circle of fifths, so we'll go to the F next. And just because why not, let's play B flat too. That's been all for today's episode of Jake Teaches You How to Play Instruments. Join us next time when we learn how to play the Peruvian pan flute. Howdy kids! Today on Learning How to Play Pit, we're going to be playing 12s as an exercise written by our director, the Shane Waltney, and we'll probably use it throughout the season to play with battery and ensemble warm-ups. So the premise of 12s is pretty simple. You usually have one hand staying on one note while the other hand will move, and it will alternate between hands, but almost throughout the entire exercise until the very end you're going to have one note staying still and one note moving. So let's start from the beginning. It starts with your left hand on C. It's just going to anchor on C for a long time, right? For about 2 bars. And so your right hand comes in after, so it's going to start with one note of just your left hand, and then after that you'll start on the D and work up to the B and back down with your right hand. So it's going to sound like this. Alright, so you notice after that I go up to the B, back down to the D, and then straight to a C and an E, right? So after that pattern, you're going to start on this E. You're going to do this like staircase up pattern with your right hand kind of. So you'll see it on the sheet music, but it looks something like this. And so you notice at the end I hit octave C's twice, and that is the start of, I think, measure 3. We'll figure it out in post. So after that, your right hand is now going to stay on this top C while your left hand is going to move. Your left hand is going to move in a similar pattern to what your right hand just did. It's going to go from the C to the B, back down, and then do another staircase pattern guy with your left hand. It's going to sound something like this. So that should be 4 bars done. We'll see. And you're going to go all the way up here, hit this B and the C, and then your left hand is going to start moving down, right? And now when your left hand hits the D, we throw you for a loop. And your right hand then moves with your left hand. So as your left hand moves from the D to the C, your right hand is going to move from a C to a B. Then your left hand after that will stay anchored on the C, and your right hand will move down. So starting back from the top of the left hand section, all together that's going to sound like this. So you notice right when I move this, I move down here, keep going, and hit 2 Ds. So right after that, you're going to go from here, you're going to go your right hand up to a C, and then after that, once you hit this C octave, your hands are going to start moving in octaves up the keyboard instead of keeping one hand still. So back from the top of the left hand section, all the way out, it's going to sound like this. That's the octave section. So just so you know, I think it starts on the second beat, it might be the third. And it goes like this, it's C, up to F, and then back down to C, so. And then it goes all the way up, and it stops and comes back in a couple places. Stops at the A, comes back to the G, back up. And then C, B, C, D, and all the way back down to the B below the start, and back to C to resolve it. So. And that's the octave section. That one takes a couple seconds to get, but just practicing it with the sheet music will help a lot. So altogether, 12 is going to sound something like this. That's how to play 12. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So, you learn how to hold 4 mallets. That's super cool. And now what we're going to use with this is I'm going to teach you how to play an exercise called blocks, right? Blocks is really good for building a lot of wrist chops. It's also really good for learning how to just stay in time really well. We started doing it this past winter with Andrew and Nathan. So it's a pretty simple exercise for the most part. It's not that too hard to grasp. There's just a couple things that could trip you up if you're not careful. So let's get into it. So blocks, it's going to start out, the main interval you're going to hold in blocks is going to be a 5th constant, right? You're going to start on a C, G, C, G, right? And you're just going to start playing 8th notes of blocks, right? And then after that, you can probably see, you just take the same form of a 5th in both hands and shift it up to C sharp, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp. So you're then going to do 8 of that. Then after that, you probably guessed you're going to go 8 more on D, then 8 more on D sharp, 8 more on E, right? And after you play the E, you come back down, D sharp, D, C sharp, and C, and that's going to start the next section of blocks once you hit that C, right? So all together, it's going to look like this. On the end, I hit that C with just mallet 1 and mallet 3, right? Because the next section, after you do the blocks part, is doing the first last part, where you start, you're gonna basically get an alternating stroke motion, going 1-3 and then 2-4, 1-3, 2-4, 1-3, 2-4, right? So that section follows the exact same pattern as the first section: C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, D sharp, D, C sharp, back to C. And instead of playing blocks though, you're going to play eighth notes with that alternating pattern. So the second section is going to sound like this. Alright, and then at the end again, you notice I hit with the outside two mallets 1 and 4. Because the last section is outsides, insides, outsides, insides. So that's 1-4 and then 2-3. 1-4, 2-3. Right? So that section, the end section, follows the exact same pattern as the first two, and it will sound something like this. I'll stop right before we get to the end because there's something different. So that's that part. Then after that, you're going to have this little 2-bar tag at the end of the song, right? And it's going to start with C, G, C, G, outsides, insides, right? So it's going to go. And then after that, you're going to shift your intervals in both hands from a fifth down to a fourth. So then instead of playing C, G, C, G, you're playing C, F, C, F, right? So it's going to be a bar of a fifth and then a bar of a fourth, right? That comes at the end of the outside inside section, so it's going to sound the whole tag like this. Right? Just 2 bars, 8 notes in each bar, right? So that's how you play the basic exercise. I'll play it again from top to bottom just so you can follow along and play along. So here it goes. That's how you play blocks. Now, of course, there's a lot of different ways to change blocks. You can break up perms, you can add new perms in there, you can take off the last eighth note of each measure and make it from 8/8 into 7/8. That's really fun. And all of those will come with experience. Andrew and Nathan will probably have you guys do new perms and new breakups and stuff like that throughout the season. But for now, just try and get the basic exercise and understand how to move your hands in time with the music. Whoa, strap in, buckaroo, because today this isn't your mama's learn how to play marimba video. No, no, no. This is advanced learn how to play marimba video, because today we're playing broccoli, right? Broccoli is a really common exercise. Almost every pit across the country will play some variant of it, right? And it's an exercise meant to isolate each individual stroke, right? And then as you speed it up, learning how to take those isolated strokes and move them really fast into lateral strokes, right? So the basic premise of broccoli is really simple. The notes aren't complicated at all. I'm gonna teach you how Andrew and Nathan will probably teach you with this chord, right? Which is gonna be A, E, F, C, right? Just A, E, F, C. That's the basic chord, and throughout the exercise you'll take this shape and move it up and down the keyboard, right? And just follow along with that chord shape, right? So, now you're asking, well, that's cool and all, but how do I move my hands, right? That's the hard part. That's the really hard part. It's going to take a lot of practice and a lot of effort to figure out how to individually stroke your hands in every pattern in broccoli, right? But I'll start from the top and I'll run through each and every pattern and we'll just go from there, right? So the top starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You're going to play 1, 2, 3, 4 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then after that, after a bar of the 1, 2, 3, 4, you probably guess the pattern is going to shift, right? It goes 2, 3, 4, 1, right? And once it shifts, it goes up a chord, right? Up one note to the next chord. So and then after that, you probably guessed again, shifts from starting on 2, starting on 3, right? It's going to go like this on the next chord. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. And then after that, it's going to go 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1. So that section, that first section where you play each pattern 4 times is called the 4 section, and all together it's going to sound like this. Then after that, you're going to go back to the 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern, but instead of playing each pattern 4 times, you're now going to play it 2 times before shifting. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, shift, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, shift, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, shift, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? The only difference there is, as opposed to the 4s where after the 4 pattern you hit a 1, this time you're going to hit a 4 to prepare yourself for the downs. So that second part is called the 2s. You got the 4s in the front, 2s in the back, right? That's going to sound, the whole up the scale pattern is going to sound like this. Right? That's the up the scale pattern. After that, you're going to start going down the scale. When you go down the scales, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4 and moving up from left to right on your hand, you're going to start on the right side and move down, right? So the first pattern is going to be 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. You're going to start over playing 4s again, just like in the beginning, right? So 4, 3, 2, 1. After that, you shift to 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. After that, again, you're going to shift starting on 2 this time. 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3. And then you're going to shift again starting on 1. 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 4. Right? That's the 4 pattern starting at the top and going down, and it's going to sound like this. And then after that, just like the time going up, you're going to go from the 4s to the 2. You're going to do each pattern again, and instead of playing it 4 times, you're going to play it twice. So it's going to be same shape of patterns and same way you play them. It's going to sound like this. Right? So altogether, the down section is going to sound like this. hits the up and down with 4 and 2s. So once you hit coming back down at the end of the 2s coming back down, you're going to start going back up in the pattern we call the 1s, right? So the 1s is where you play each pattern, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. You're going to play that once and then shift to the next pattern. So remember that in this section, it's kind of weird because you do 2 patterns on each chord, but you shift patterns every single count. So for example, on the first count, or the first chord, it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3. So you notice I played 2 patterns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, 3, 4, 1 on one chord. Then I shift to the next chord, right? The next chord obviously is going to be 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, right? And so you're going to keep doing this, 2 patterns on each chord going up. And you're going to start from the bottom, go all the way to the top, right? Now, this one takes a lot of practice because it's kind of hard to make your mind move fast enough in order to get all the changes in time, but with a lot of practice you can get it. And here's what the 1 section will sound going up. Right? And then you're going to start from there and do the same thing, 1 count on each pattern, 2 patterns per chord, going down in the down chords we learned earlier, the down patterns. So it's going to sound like this. The whole exercise on a 1, right? So that's the 1s pattern going up and down. Now I know it's a lot to take in all at once, and it's going to take a lot of practice to really learn the whole exercise, but altogether, broccoli from the start to the end is going to sound like this. That's how you play broccoli. Now it's going to take a lot of time to get used to, and I just want you to remember that you don't necessarily have to have a board in front of you to practice this exercise, right? The shifts of the chords are pretty easy for the most part. You're just moving up and down, right? So you don't really need to think too much about that. You can just grab some mallets and go home with them and practice playing out all the patterns, right? And I also want you to remember, start slow and always practice this with the met. I know I didn't use it in this video, that's just so you could hear me better, but always practice every exercise you get with the met. It's going to take a lot of practice to get this one, but after a lot of hard work and determination, you'll be able to get it. I've been Jake Looney. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.